For some reason, I haven't seen the rice grains method taught as prevalently in the West, but it is quite common in the Eastern hemisphere. And this methodology I actually learned from my cousin in Taiwan, who is an I Ching master. And this is her preferred methodology, and this is the one, her go-to one. This is the one that she learned from her master teacher and so on. So I want to share it with you, and it's something that I feel like if you want to have a comprehensive education on the I Ching system, then you should know it. It doesn't mean you should use it, but you should definitely know it and know about it and how to go about doing this. So the first thing you're going to need is about 1 cup of uncooked rice grains. Now for mine, it's this multi-grain type where you can see there's that many different colored rice grains. Obviously that's not necessary. In fact, the more traditional one you can guess is going to be the all-white jasmine rice grains. Basically the idea here is to source what you have on hand. The reason rice grains would be used in such a divinatory method is because it's what practitioners in Asia would have had easy access to. So if you don't have easy access to rice grains, don't use this methodology. You can still use a methodology that's equivalent to this through something like, for example, maybe corn kernels, or maybe finding small beads that are all uniform and about as tiny as these rice grains. So just find an equivalent that can be locally sourced and that's natural from the Mother Earth around you. That's really what's more important. If you want to be purist, then go local and source from the Mother Nature that you live around. Now, for me, the reason I have the multicolored one was because at the time when I consecrated and prepared my bowl of rice for divination, that was just what I had on hand. And I like it too, so I didn't bother using the more quote-unquote traditional white rice. I like how this looks. Anyway, so although of course you can just go into your pantry and grab rice and start this right off the bat, most practitioners are going to want to consecrate their rice and prepare it for divination. Most practitioners have an altar space set up somewhere in their home to a patron deity, or for Buddhists, it would be a Buddhist altar set up for a specific Buddha or even a Bodhisattva, or even three Buddhas, or a Buddha and 2 Bodhisattvas. In any case, you would have some kind of, or an ancestor altar. You'd have some kind of sacred space or altar, which would be a point in the house for the spirit realm to come down and watch over, protect, and guide the physical human realm. And so to consecrate, you would place this on that altar, perhaps burn some incense, light some candles, perform a ritual around it that's very personalized to you, and in effect perform a ritualized prayer to petition the deities to consecrate the rice for you so that it can be prepared and used for divination. Okay, so you're going to want about 1 cup of it, and this is basically how you do it. The first thing you do is, whether or not, if it's a general inquiry, you just want to keep your mind open. If it's a specific question, you think of the question. You're going to have the rice on hand, and you start by pulling out about I would say about a tablespoon worth of rice. You want about 1 pile first. Then you place it down. And then what you do is you count the number of rice grains in the first pile, in this initial pile that you pulled. And you're going to want to only count the full rice grains. So for example, if there are tiny broken pieces, don't count those. Only count the full rice grains. At this time, you should pause the video here and go get a cup of uncooked rice grains for yourself to do the divination and follow along while I show the video tutorial. Okay, I counted 173, so I'm going to write that down and just log it. So for the first pile, there were 173 grains of rice. And there's going to be math involved in this particular methodology. I use a calculator, but I don't want to, for my personal practice, I don't want to do that right now. I don't like to have I don't want to have the electronics there. I don't want to, have that sort of device close by while I'm doing this. So I wait till the end, and I can't do this in my head, so I just wait. What you will do is you're going to want to divide it by 8. The remainder is going to be a number that corresponds with the trigram, but we're not going to do that for now. Just count it first, and then what you do is you set it aside. And then you're going to want to get a second pile. Okay. So try to keep it away. That way you're not going to confuse it with the second pile. Again, same thing. You go grab a pile, and then you begin counting that pile and count the number of rice grains in the second pile. Again, you shouldn't be just watching me do this on the screen. You really should be following along with your own pad of rice grains and doing a divination while you watch this. Okay, in my second pile, I have 172, so I'm going to write that down. Second pile, 172. Then I'm going to set that aside, and now I'm going to do a third pile. Pause the video as needed so that you can go ahead and count your own piles of rice grains and follow along. Okay, my third pile has 123, so I'll write that down. Okay, so now we can do the math for that. I'm going to be using my calculator, which is on my phone, and you can use the same thing. So the first number, the first pile that you have, remember that number, whatever that number is, divide it by 8. Now for me it was 173, so I divide 173 by 8. Now, if it is a multiple of 8, and so it divides evenly with 8 with zero remainder, there isn't a remainder after the division problem, then your assigned number is going to be 8. If it's not, for me 173 divided by 8 does have a remainder, you're going to have to figure out what that remainder is, and this is just basic math. Okay, so for me, the remainder is 5, and so I know that for the first pile, the assigned number is 5. Now, all of the 8 trigrams are assigned a number. It is in your book. I'm going to look at my copy. It's going to look a little bit different from yours because I am using a slightly different version. But if you look at this page, for example, all of the trigrams are numbered at the top, so you know exactly which one it is. So for example, number 5 would be wind, I believe. Hold on, let me see. That's correct, right? So because my remainder or my assigned number was 5, 5 is wind, so the first trigram I've constructed is wind. That's going to be the lower trigram. So I go ahead and draw it. That's a yin line and 2 yang lines. And so because my number is 5, I'm going to be drawing the trigram for wind, and that's the lower trigram. Now I do the same thing for the second one. My second pile count was 172. Again, I divide 172 by 8, and I figure out the remainder. Whatever the numerical remainder is, it will be less than 8. So if it divides evenly into your full count, then that means it's an 8. If it divides unevenly and there is a remainder, figure out what that remainder is, 1 through 7. For my second rice grain pile, the assigned number or the remainder after I divide 172 into 8 is 4. So the remainder in that division problem, 172 divided by 8 is 4. So I have 4 for the second one. Now 4 is assigned the trigram thunder. And so then that means the upper trigram is thunder. So I go ahead and I draw thunder above the lower trigram that I just drew. And so since the bottom was wind and the top was thunder for me, and you're going to find out which it is for you, because the first number was 5, that's wind. The second number is 4, that's thunder. So the first pile is the lower trigram. You always go from bottom up. And the second pile is the upper trigram, so that's thunder. And so it's thunder over wind is the final hexagram that I've constructed from this. Now for the third rice grain pile, the total number is divided by 6. So now you divide it by 6. Mine was 123, so I do the math, 123 divided by 6, and if it divides evenly into 6 with no remainder, then your assigned number is 6. If it divides and there's a remainder, do the division problem, figure out what that remainder is, and that remainder, which will be under 6, will be 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. That remainder is your assigned number. So now I'm going to do 123 because there was 123 rice grains in my third pile divided by 6. So after I did the division, the remainder I got was 3. So for the third rice grain pile, my assigned number is 3. Now, as you remember, the first number that was assigned for the rice grain pile 1 is the lower trigram. The number assigned for the second rice grain pile is the upper trigram. The upper and lower together creates your hexagram. Now you have your hexagram already. Then the third one, which you divided by 6, is the line number. Remember, if you've looked at your book, in the book of changes, after each entry, you're going to have the oracle section, and after the oracle section, there are actually more sections, each line number. So there's line 1, line 2, line 3, 4, 5, 6, 6 lines. So the third rice grain pile tells you which line to read. For me, it's going to be line 3. Now, using your book again, what you do is you can use that one hexagram graph that's in your book right here. And using this graph, find the upper trigram and the lower trigram, cross-reference the two as a Cartesian plane, and figure out the hexagram. So for me, it's 5 is it's thunder over wind. So I'm going to find thunder on the top and go down and find wind. And that is hexagram 32. So for my result, it's hexagram 32. Using the same graph, you're going to figure out what your hexagram result is. Now that I know which hexagram it is, hexagram 32, I turn in my book of changes to hexagram 32 to read the hexagram result. So mine is hexagram 32, endurance perception, and you're going to find it as well. And what you're going to do is read the oracle section of the hexagram that you divined. So just read the oracle section in the book of your hexagram. Now, the result that I got is very interesting. Hexagram 32, as you will note in the book, if you're following along just to see what my results were, it is one of the hexagrams in the I Ching that has to do with partnership, love, alliances, things like that, chemistry in terms of social romantic chemistry. And so this is very interesting for me in terms of it does apply to something that's just been going on, a conversation I had literally 5 minutes before I sat down to record this video. So it relates to me and my current partnership. So it's very interesting how the I Ching, like I said in the previous video on Yarrow stock divination, does seem to tap into the temperature of your mindset and your mentality at any given moment. It's very interesting how it does that. So after you read the oracle section, remember the third rice grain pile yielded a number as well. That's 3 for me. So then after I read the oracle section, I will turn to the third line because the assigned number 3 corresponds with the third line, and read just the section on the third line. And you will do the same thing. So whatever your result is for the third pile of rice grains, find the corresponding line number in the book and read just that section. Now, after you read the divinatory result, which is going to be the oracle section for the hexagram you divined from the upper and lower trigrams, that's going to be rice grain pile 1, rice grain pile 2. Then you've read the line number for from the third pile of rice grains. The line number is going to be instructive. So the oracle basically is your main divination, and then the line number is going to give you some additional instruction. Basically, it's the oracle telling you what to do from here, how to proceed to make sure you best navigate your current life path in a way that optimizes your higher purpose, optimizes your chances of success, and basically ensures your achievement and well-being. So the line number is going to indicate basically instructional material from the oracle, whereas the oracle section itself was the oracular or divinatory message. Now, about the rice grain methodology, after this, there is an opportunity for clarification. So let's say after you read the oracle section and the line number, you still have a follow-up question. Let's say I say, okay, but how do I do that? Or let's say I just say, I don't really understand what the oracle or line was telling me. I need some clarification. If you need clarification or you have a follow-up question, you can ask your follow-up question at this time, or that question can be simply, I need clarification, please give me some clarification or further insight into the situation at hand. So then what you do is you're going to want to get a fourth pile of rice grains. And this will be for clarification. What you do is you reach in and you just ask the divine for clarification, or you ask at this time your follow-up question. Once you've gotten that follow-up question, you grab the pile and then you count this fourth pile of rice grains. You can pause the video here so you have a chance to count your own rice grain pile. Okay, for my fourth pile, I counted 157. So write that down, 157. Now taking this 157, divide it again by 6. So I'm going to be using my calculator, and you divide your fourth number, the total number, by 6. Again, like with the previous operations, you're going to figure out the remainder. If it is exactly 6, then there's no remainder. Then not exactly 6. If it's a multiple of 6 and there's no remainder, the remainder is 0. Then your assigned number is 6. Otherwise, it is the remainder. My remainder, 157 divided by 6. The remainder was 1. So my assigned number is 1. Now, what's interesting here is, let's say your fourth operation, after you do the division, the number that's assigned is the same assigned number as the number from the third pile of rice grains, then you cannot ask a clarification. That means the oracle has said you've got all the information you need. There is no opportunity for clarification. You don't need to answer your follow-up question that you thought you needed to answer, and you already have all the information you need in the oracle and in the initial divination, so don't ask any follow-up. And so, for example, my third rice grain pile yielded the assigned number 3. So if in the fourth pile I got 3 as the remainder again, then I cannot consult the I Ching again. I'm done. My I Ching divination is finished. I should look at the hexagram that was the result, the line number, and really sit and reflect, ruminate on that oracle message and not go further. Now, my number is different. My fourth rice grain pile yielded 1, so I can look. Now, what I do is I go back to hexagram 30, to the same hexagram you've been looking at. Go back to the same hexagram that you've been looking at. Now this time, go to the line number corresponding with the remainder or assigned number for the fourth rice grain pile. Now for me, that's 1. So I'm going to look at line 1 of hexagram 32. Once I find hexagram 32, I go to line 1. Remember, line 3 was part of the oracle message because that was my third rice grain pile. Now I turn to the first line because my fourth rice grain pile yielded line 1, and I read that, and that is going to answer my follow-up question. It's going to give me some clarification on the original or the initial divinatory results. The rice grain methodology is different from the yarrow stock and the coin toss in the sense that you aren't going to be yielding changing lines, and you're not going to be looking at trying to yield changing lines. As you can see, it was just the one hexagram. It's essentially a locked hexagram, but the way you read it is different from the other methodologies, and you just work within one hexagram.